finally, what we all have been waiting for and calling for and questioning why it wasn't happening. Stephanie White has stepped up to the plate in defense of Caitlin Clark. I could not believe my ears, guys. I could not believe my ears when I heard this. Stephanie White actually being bold enough to stand on business and protect Caitlin Clark.
Stephanie White just did what almost nobody in the WNBA has the guts to do. She spoke the truth out loud, no filters, no hesitation. She called out how Caitlin Clark's name keeps getting dragged into every single CBA discussion, even when Caitlin herself says absolutely nothing. White didn't sugarcoat a word. She laid it all out. So let's break down exactly what she said and why her comments are shaking up the entire league. Do you think Caitlin Clark is being taken advantage of by the WNBA and its players right now?
And it is Stephanie White talking about Caitlin Clark being brought up in a lot of these conversations in CBA by other people and not her speaking herself. And I think this is a really interesting one. And it's clear from this answer, I've already listened to this, it's very clear from this answer that Stephanie White clearly and Caitlin Clark, there's clearly a level of person, like they clearly really like each other as people.
Alright, so Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White just gave an interview that's rocking the entire WNBA. And believe me, this one changes everything.
Saying what it is, these people are using Caitlin Clark, they're disrespecting.
Her message was clear. This can't keep happening. But here's the thing. She didn't lose her temper or go on some fiery rant. Instead, she did something far more powerful. She spoke calmly, confidently, and dropped nothing but truth. Her exact words were, "I hate it all for Caitlin. She's a 23-year-old kid who loves this game, and she's become a pawn in so many other people's agendas." That single quote set the entire tone. Because let's be honest, she's absolutely right. Caitlin Clark has somehow turned into the centerpiece of every WNBA debate. Whether it's player pay, fluctuating viewership, media bias, or questionable officiating, her name always gets dragged right into the middle of it all.
And then Caitlin Clark kind of getting brought into that, Caitlin Clark responding to it. What has been your overall assessment of that dialogue and as it relates to your star player?
Yeah, I mean, I hate it all for Caitlin. I feel like, she's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game, who is a pawn in a lot of other people's games and a lot of other people's narratives, and I hate that for her. We're coming into a time in the WNBA where we're kind of part of the growing pains of becoming quote-unquote mainstream professional sport is some of this stuff.
The craziest part is that Caitlin herself hasn't even said anything controversial all season, yet somehow she keeps getting dragged into every single drama. It's like she's become the face of every issue the league can't solve. And Stephanie White, she's had enough of it. When White said Caitlin's being used as a pawn, she wasn't just pointing fingers at one group, she was calling everyone out. The players, the commissioner, and the media. Each side is using Caitlin's name to push their own agenda. Let's be real, Caitlin Clark is the biggest name women's basketball has right now. She's the ratings magnet, the ticket seller, the headline everyone's chasing. And because she draws so much attention, it feels like everyone's trying to ride her wave. But it's gotten out of control. Every time a player criticizes the league, Caitlin's name somehow gets thrown in. Every time the WNBA makes a move, it's instantly framed around how it affects her. She's no longer treated like a player. She's become a brand, a marketing tool. And that right there is exactly what Stephanie White is done watching happen.
I do think that we are at a pivotal moment in terms of the league's history. And look, I was a part of the very first collective bargaining agreement of the WNBA where we wanted insurance all year long, to now where it is growing and players do deserve more. And leadership needs to reflect where we are as a league and also understand where we are as a league and where players' perspectives are coming from. And we have coaches on the sidelines, and Becky Hammond and myself, and of course Noah Quinn, who was in Seattle, who played in this league.
She's watched Caitlyn all season, taking brutal hits on the court, dealing with non-stop criticism off it. Yet somehow, she's kept her composure through it all, never once losing her cool. But here's the reality no one wants to admit. No 23-year-old should have to carry the weight of an entire league's politics on their shoulders. When Stephanie White calls Caitlyn a pawn, she means it. The league uses her to sell out arenas. Players use her name to push for better contracts. The media milks her story for clicks. And the fans, they end up watching a league that often feels more focused on controversy than basketball. But here's where it gets deeper. White isn't just speaking as a coach standing up for her player. She's speaking as a veteran who's been around since the WNBA's toughest days. She remembers when players were fighting just to get basic healthcare and steady paychecks. So when she calls this a growing pain, it's not a throwaway line. It comes from experience. Back then, players were just grateful the league existed. Now they're demanding what they've earned. Fair pay, real influence, and genuine respect. But the leadership, they're still years behind. White made her stance unmistakably clear. The people running the league are stuck in the past. And while she never said Cathy Engelbert's name outright, everyone knew exactly who she meant. Because let's be honest, every major controversy seems to land right at the commissioner's desk. Engelbert's been under fire for months. From brushing off player frustrations to making tone-deaf remarks about Caitlyn's off-court income. She's managed to alienate both the fans and the athletes. So when White said, "We need better leadership," that was her polite way of saying, it's time to get your act together. And honestly, she's right. How many times has this league completely botched even the simplest situations? From inconsistent officiating to poor communication to fines that make zero sense. It's clear the front office has no clue how to handle success. Because yes, the WNBA is thriving, but not because of the executives. It's the players driving this growth. White nailed it perfectly. Your employees are your #1 asset. And yet, those very players continue to feel ignored and disrespected. Just look back a few weeks. Napheesa Collier openly blasted Cathy Engelbert, calling out her failed leadership and even claiming Engelbert told Caitlyn Clark she should just be grateful for the platform. That moment alone sent shockwaves through the league, and instead of addressing it head on, Engelbert gave a cold, lifeless statement that satisfied no one. Then came Sophie Cunningham, who didn't hold back, calling Cathy Engelbert the most delusional leader this league has ever had. And honestly, with everything happening right now, it's hard to disagree. Lexi Hull publicly stood behind Becky Hammon's recent remarks about officiating, which many saw as subtle shade toward the league. And now, even Stephanie White, usually one of the calmest, most composed figures in the WNBA, is speaking out. That alone shows just how deep the frustration really runs. But let's bring it back to Caitlyn. Through all of this noise, she said practically nothing. When reporters asked her about Napheesa Collier's comments, all Caitlyn said was, "I have great respect for Fee. She made a lot of valid points. That's it. No drama, no shade." And yet, her name still dominated headlines for weeks. Because no matter what the topic is, people can't seem to stop attaching Caitlyn Clark to every single issue. And Stephanie White absolutely despises that. You can hear the protectiveness in her voice every time she talks about Caitlyn. Not just as her player, but as a young woman trying to navigate immense pressure. White understands better than anyone the enormous weight that comes with being made the face of an entire league. Because the truth is, Caitlyn never asked for that role. The WNBA handed it to her. They saw the massive ratings spike and instantly crowned her their golden ticket. But now when things go wrong, she's become the league's favorite scapegoat. That's what really sets White off. Her message is crystal clear. Stop using Caitlyn Clark as your shield. If players have legitimate CBA concerns, address them. If there's frustration with leadership, say it directly. But don't twist every single discussion into a Caitlyn Clark debate. The sad part? It's not likely to stop anytime soon, because Caitlyn means money, and money always wins. But here's the twist no one expected. The more the league exploits her image, the more fans are starting to turn on the league itself. People see right through it now. They know when Caitlyn's name is being used as a distraction from the league's own failures. Just look back earlier this season, when officials let Caitlyn get roughed up game after game, and the WNBA stayed silent. Only after the public outrage exploded did they suddenly start talking about player safety. That's exactly what White is calling out. The league only acts when it looks bad publicly, not when it's simply the right thing to do. And this isn't just about officiating, it's about respect. It's about honest communication. It's about actually listening to the players who are the WNBA. Stephanie White has been around long enough to know the difference between true leadership and empty PR talk. and Kathy Engelbert, in her eyes, has been doing nothing but the latter. That's why voices like Collier's and White's are finally speaking up now, because they've seen this pattern before, and they know exactly how it ends if nothing changes. The WNBA is standing at a crossroads, and this time, the entire world is watching to see which direction it chooses. Right now, the WNBA finally has everything it's been chasing for decades: momentum, massive attention, and true stars who can actually move the needle. But along with all that progress comes something else: frustration. Players, coaches, and fans are running out of patience, and Stephanie White just had the courage to say what everyone else has been quietly thinking. Here's the part most people might have missed. White didn't just criticize, she also defended the league. She called the chaos we're seeing growing pains, and honestly, she's right. Every major sports league has gone through rough stages before reaching greatness. The NBA did, the NFL did. The difference: those leagues had leaders who learned from their mistakes. The question now is, will the WNBA do the same? Because if it doesn't, these cracks could quickly turn into something much bigger. And while all this infighting continues, the real losers are the fans. The constant drama is drowning out the actual game, the passion, the skill, the basketball itself. It's getting lost in the noise. White sees that. That's why her words hit so hard. She's not out to attack anyone. She's simply reminding everyone what's really at stake. The WNBA's credibility depends entirely on how it treats its biggest stars. And right now, the league isn't doing a great job. Let's be real. Stephanie White didn't just defend Caitlin Clark. She quietly called out the entire system while sounding like the only grown-up in the room. When she said, "We're experiencing the growing pains of becoming a mainstream league," that wasn't just filler. That was a reality check for everyone: players, owners, and league officials alike. Because at the moment, the WNBA acts like it wants NBA-level fame and money, but still operates like a college program. Think about it. Elite athletes flying commercial, arguing over tiny salaries, and getting fined for speaking their minds. Meanwhile, the executives in suits take the credit when ratings soar, even though it's the players doing all the heavy lifting. Stephanie White knows this better than anyone. She's lived both sides, as a player during the league's early struggles, and now as a coach during its biggest surge of growth. She's not anti-league, she's anti-nonsense. And when she says Caitlin Clark is being used as a pawn, that's her polite way of saying everyone's cashing in on Caitlin while pretending they're not. The league has built a strange culture. Everyone claims to support women's basketball, but they get uncomfortable when it means giving credit where it's due. They'll put Caitlin's face on every promo, highlight her in every broadcast, and use her name to sell out arenas. But the second she starts getting too much individual recognition, panic sets in. Suddenly, she's overshadowing others. Sorry, but that's what happens when someone changes the game. Michael Jordan did it, LeBron James did it, Serena Williams did it, and now Caitlin Clark is doing it. Every revolution in sports comes with jealousy, fear, and power struggles behind the scenes. Stephanie White sees that clearly, and she's smart enough to call it out without burning bridges. But here's the real irony: the WNBA seems completely unprepared for its own success. Instead of celebrating the growth it's been dreaming of, it's stumbling over how to handle it. The WNBA finally has the spotlight it's been chasing for years. Millions of new fans, packed arenas, and real, undeniable buzz. Yet somehow they're managing to waste it all with endless drama and clueless leadership. And the wildest part, Kathy Engelbert is now trying to act like she's the reason for the league's success. Please. The WNBA blew up because of Caitlin Clark, because she made people care. Fans tuned in for her games, not for another dry press conference about sustainability. And every single time someone points that out, Kathy slips into this weird victim act. I'm so disheartened. You're not a guidance counselor, you're running a multi-million-dollar professional league. That's exactly the kind of fake leadership Stephanie White is calling out. True leadership means standing up for your players when they're being dragged online or blatantly disrespected on the court. White's been doing that from day one. Engelbert, nowhere to be found. What makes it even more frustrating is that Kathy's defenders keep insisting she's a businesswoman. Sure, but being good at business doesn't mean you can ignore the basketball side of your job. Players like Nafisa Collier, Sophie Cunningham, and even coaches like Becky Hammon are speaking out because they're tired of watching decisions that might look smart financially, but make zero sense for the game itself. You can feel the tension boiling over. Collier gave a carefully crafted speech like she was running for office. Cunningham went nuclear on the mic. And Stephanie White. She didn't need theatrics. She calmly dropped a truth bomb that hit harder than both combined. Because she's absolutely right. Everyone is using Caitlin Clark. Here's how it breaks down. The league uses her to sell growth to sponsors. The media uses her name for guaranteed clicks. Players use her as leverage in contract talks. And fans, they use her as an excuse to bash the WNBA every time something goes wrong. Meanwhile, Caitlin just wants to hoop. As Stephanie said herself, she's 23 years old and just wants to play the game she loves. But the politics surrounding her have gotten out of control. Every move she makes becomes a headline. Every facial expression gets torn apart. If she smiles, she's fake. If she doesn't, she's cocky. If she wins, it's favoritism. If she loses, she's overrated. It's exhausting. At some point, something's gotta give. Stephanie White didn't just defend Caitlin Clark, and she defended the future of the WNBA. Because if the league keeps treating its biggest star like a marketing tool instead of a person, it won't just lose Caitlin, it'll lose the fans too. So now the real question is, was Stephanie White right about the WNBA's leadership, or is the league too far gone to fix itself?